Hello and welcome to my channel, Ghost Dog here. This week's video is going to be slightly shorter than normal. It's not what I wanted to do. I've got a bigger project coming, but the research for that is a little more than I expected. Hopefully next week after, I should have a nice big long video for people to watch and also comment on. I welcome people's comments. Anyway, let's begin. There's these two articles from the Friendly Atheist website I wanted to look at. The first one is entitled Pro-Life Pastor Sentenced to 17 Years in Jail for Child Sex Abuse. Yeah, there's nothing I've read this about 5 times now, and I still have nothing for that title because it's just outrageous. Anyway, let's get into the article and let's begin. This article was dated August 14th, 2021. A former Southern Baptist pastor whose colleagues turned him in has been sentenced to 17 years in jail for sexually assaulting a child, but that doesn't even begin to describe the depravity involved in this situation. A couple of years ago, I don't know if you can remember, Texas was considering a ban on abortions that would have subjected women, not just doctors, to the death penalty. A Republican state legislator, Jeff Leach, said he couldn't support the abolition of abortion bill eventually died. Jack Graham, the pastor of Houston megachurch, even praised Leach, who just happened to be a member of his congregation. He praised him for his courageous decision. To be fair, yeah, I would want the whole bill gone. I do remember this. This was the HB 898 or something bill. It was the heartbeat bill. I think it was, if a woman is pregnant and a heartbeat is detected, then basically you can't have the abortion. The only problem with that is most women don't realise they're pregnant until at least 17 weeks, which I think, if my maths is correct, it's just within the first trimester. At that point, of course there's going to be a heartbeat. But that heartbeat, it's still only part of a small bundle of cells. There is nothing there to suggest that that is a human being other than a heartbeat. Anyway, I digress. Let's carry on. But the exchange infuriated Stephen Bratton, the pastor at Grace Family Baptist Church, who had publicly testified in defense of the bill. He soon penned a lengthy rebuke of Graham for supporting a man who had prevented the passage of an anti-abortion bill in a red state, no less, and for allowing supposed murder to continue unabated. What murder? It's a bundle of cells. There is nothing there to suggest that those bundle of cells are a life form. Okay, so this next bit is the comment from Stephen Bratton. Quote, "You have used the power of the pulpit and your influence as one who is supposed to speak for the Lord to effectively endorse the murder of another 55,000 children in Texas, and in the next year 110,000 over the coming 2 years, before our legislature meets again." This first statement, the only issue I have is the numbers. They're just imaginary. Yes, I have seen those numbers statistically, but those numbers are linked with people coming in to Texas to have an abortion, not just those who live there. There's no way 55,000 women are going to have an abortion in 12 months in one state, similar in 2 years for the 110,000. More than likely, those numbers, those figures come from women or couples coming from out of state into Texas to have the abortions. It happens. He continues, because you are not ignorant of the word of God, you are held more accountable for your actions. You have been given much influence through the pulpit and your leadership in the Southern Baptist Convention. Much will be required from you as you stand before the Lord. Your endorsement of the shelving of HB 896 is essentially authorizing the deaths of approximately 110,000 preborn children in this state, not proven anyway, and you will be held accountable before God for those deaths. Because you have endorsed this position, you have removed justice from the equation, thereby giving sinful men and women no reason to discontinue the act of murder. Again, it's not proven, it's murder. It's not proving that there is a life being killed. It's just a bundle of cells, basically. Well, it is. It's a bundle of cells. Anyway, this is back to Herod Messer. See, everyone, unlike Graham, Bratton cared about children, pre-born and presumably otherwise. As a pastor, he understood the influence he had. He also understood the importance of moral integrity, because he one day would stand before the Lord. Oh, the irony. In hindsight, that was quite a statement coming from Bratton, because a month after he wrote that public denunciation against Graham, he confessed to his fellow church leaders that he had repeatedly raped an underage relative. Oh my, I didn't realise it was a relative. Not that makes it any better. It doesn't. It doesn't even make it any worse, because it is what it is. It's bad, you know? Starting when she was 13 years old and continuing for the next 5 years, he had allegedly abused her with sexual intercourse multiple times a day or several times a week. Part of me, I always like to give people the benefit of the doubt. I always think there is a little good in people, and generally most people are decent and will do the right thing. But when I see this, it just makes me angry. Anyway, let's continue. Again, this is Herod Messer, and I think this is him being ironic. No wonder he wanted to protect the unborn. In a few years, they could become his victims. Should have a little lull at the end. Dark humour. I do like my dark humour. It has its place at times, especially when you're trying to digest something as sick as this. In 2019, he confessed his crimes to his wife, and she alerted the other pastors at their church, hoping they could speak with him. Once those pastors heard his confession, to their tremendous credit, they didn't leave the situation in God's hands. They informed law enforcement instead. Bratton, the father of 7, was quickly arrested, and this week he was finally sentenced to 17 years in prison. Wow. Okay, so that little bit makes me think there's hope for the human race, really. Several other pastors came forward to tell authorities what was going on after this man confessed to them. and we applaud those people of conscience. Harris County District Attorney Kim Ogg said, "This man, who had risen to a position of authority in the church, turned a child into a victim and violated his community's trust. The victim and his community deserved and got justice." To be fair, I think he needed a lot longer in prison than 17 years. Personally, the amount of time he's got in prison does not match. In my eyes, my point of view is he needed to be gone to prison for a lot longer. Mainly because if you think about it, this child was 13 and for 5 years she'd been sexually abused by him, and he gets 17 years and she gets life. That to me is not fair. He should at least get life for himself. I'm not a proponent of capital punishment. Don't believe in capital punishment. However, I do think that the punishment should fit the crime, and if the victim has to spend a lifetime getting over what he did to her, he should then spend the rest of his life in prison. Anyway, the article continues. Stephen Breton, 46, was sentenced Friday by State District Judge Hazel Jones after a hearing in which prosecutors and lawyers for Breton presented evidence from a pre-sentence investigation. Breton had pleaded guilty to aggravated sexual assault of a child under the age of 14 in February and agreed to let the judge determine his sentence. Hermessa continues, "I keep going back to the utter hypocrisy of how Breton wanted women to be put to death for wanting control over their bodies, all while he was literally raping a child multiple times a day. When women made what they felt was a responsible choice, Breton wanted them murdered, and now he'll spend most of the next 2 decades behind bars after confessing to child sexual abuse." Again, the one thing my mind is coming back to is I am so glad that not only his wife, who herself is gonna have to spend the rest of her life living with what her husband did, as well as her kids. I commend her for what she did, and I also commend the other pastors for coming forward. There are times when that never happens, and it's only recently, I would say in the last 20 years, since Jimmy Savile over here in the UK passed away, and all this stuff about his life that nobody knew about, that came to light, and that opened the floodgate for other men and women, mostly women unfortunately, to stand up and come forward and have the courage to say, "I've been abused." Okay, so this next article that I want to look at is from Beth Stoneburner. Florida pastor charged in Capitol riot urges GOP to rise up against homosexuality. I am trying not to be nasty and call names, but this is loopy. It really is. Anyway, let's start the article. This was done on the August 26th, 2021. Early this year, Kevin Tuck, an officer with the Windermere Police Department in Florida, participated in the attack at the US Capitol. He was arrested and charged with crimes connected to his alleged participation in July and resigned the same day. He was a police officer, and he went there during the Capitol riots when other police officers were being killed. Yeah, that makes sense. But unlike other people facing similar charges, including his adult son, Tuck isn't keeping quiet. In a YouTube video released this month, the former cop, who also served as pastor at the Lighthouse Church in Apopka, urged patriots to rise up against homosexuality. Why do patriots need to rise up against homosexuality? Homosexuality is just someone's sexual orientation. It's not doing them any wrong. They're not going to commit terrorist attacks. They're not going to, they're not going to attack the US Capitol and try and overturn an election. No. I really do think this guy has a few screws loose. And it's me being kind. I'm not the kind of person that likes to belittle people for doing it. It's because that person is a Fruit Loop. Anyway, this is an excerpt of the YouTube video. The Republican Party is weak, Kevin Tuck said. We need to rise up and be conservative again. Do you remember what conservative means, Republicans? Hear me out. We are embracing the homosexual lifestyle as if it is normal. I hate to tell you this, but homosexuality has been around a lot longer than conservatism and a hell of a lot longer than republicanism. Homosexuality's been around for thousands of years. Have you never heard the expression, any hole's a goal? Well, works both ways. Sorry, I joke. Anyway, this is back to Beth Stone Burner. Of all the things wrong with the Republican Party, embracing the homosexual lifestyle wasn't on anyone's list. The party is very clearly anti-gay, anti-science, anti-mask, anti-vaccine, anti-common sense, anti-voting, pro-Trump, basically anti-everything you can think of except for Trump. But even so, it's not like anyone was asking Tuck to be an ally. Stop being an obstacle to civil rights. Sure, but getting out of the way doesn't make you a champion of the oppressed. He's acting like his own homosexuality is at risk, which says more about him than the people he's condemning. Yeah, I have to agree with that. Anyone that says that I don't want to come near you because you're gay is more insecure about their own sexuality than they are concerned with the guy who's gay. The last of the article just says, in other words, there's nothing new here. It's just another MAGA cultist ranting about a subject he knows nothing about. It's the prelude to a possible jail sentence, and I hope he does go to jail. I really do. What they did on January 6th was just insane on a whole nother level. Look, I'm mid-40s. I remember the Toxteth riots. I remember Hillsborough. That in itself is going to stick with me for a long time. I wasn't there because I was too young, but I did see it on the TV. And the only time I have been moved to anger other than that day, even for a 12-year-old, was 9/11. Things like that, yeah, we need to fight against. We need to fight against and stand up against terrorism and tyranny. But being homosexual, being trans, being anything you want that isn't normal in their eyes, in his eyes, it's like terrorism. In his mind, he's probably thinking of a scenario where there's a homosexual person who's going to rock up to his house, and instead of having a suicide vest on, he's going to start singing YMCA and turn him gay. That's not going to happen. In his head, that's probably already happened. Anyway, really short video today. I hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully I'll get this out on time. Okay, so if you liked the video, please big thumbs up, share, comments if you must. I really do appreciate your comments. And subscribe if you haven't done already. And remember, being kind and giving respect makes us stronger.